Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I want to thank Jackie and Amy for both joining us tonight as well. We're in good company, right? Amy used to be a trustee with BRSSD, so continuity across the board. So I prepared a couple of talking points. I just want to share a little background about the district. Let me just jump in here. Oops, there we go. I want to talk about our strategic plan, our profile of a learner. I want to touch on International Baccalaureate. I have some great news to share there. I want to talk about the bond program that we have going on here in BRSSD, as well as some of the projects that you'll see taking place. And then really the piece where I think Carrie reached out, talk about the education and what we're seeing federally and how it's impacting us locally. And then, of course, I think that always the most important piece is just open Q&A. Anything you want to talk about or anything you have a question about, I'm always happy to give it my best go. So with that, let's jump in real quick. I know we have a couple of parents, people with families with current students in BRSSD. I know Mindy. Families with, do we have anybody online? Families in Sequoia? No? Okay, great. That's okay. We're gonna take a step back, and I always kind of gauge like, what have I shared where, and try and scaffold it accordingly. So just a couple of years ago, when actually Amy was working with us, we started to develop our strategic plan, our three-year strategic plan, 2023 to 2026. So we're right in the middle of it. And really the theme that came up for us was the idea that when we work together, we create an amazing future going forward. And when we did all of our surveys and our work, we came up with 4 big bucket areas. The first one being teaching all students to be well-rounded learners. We want all graduates of BRSSD and Carlont to be academically successful, have the skills that they need to thrive, and also to be social emotionally strong. We recognize the idea of the whole child coming together is a really important part. Academics, social emotional health, good people, all of those pieces really create successful citizens in the future. The second piece was fostering belonging and inclusion. We ensure that staff, families, and each and every student feels a strong sense of belonging, consistent with our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think in today's climate, that's really important. We want to make sure, and our community has a history of making sure that all of our kiddos, our families, feel connected to our school. Regardless of what's happened nationally, I don't think that changes anything that we do locally, right? We want to make sure our youngest kids are connected to their schools. And I think it's really, really that simple, right? Making sure that students, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of gender, regardless of orientation, they feel like they have a place in our schools and a home. And we honor that commitment to fostering belonging and inclusion in each of our 7 schools. The other piece is making sure that we're involving everybody here. That's why I was just at a PTA meeting. That's why it's important that I'm out visiting with you. It's when we engage as a community that we get better, we get stronger, and we serve our kids best. So really that commitment to fostering partnerships with our family and our community. And then finally, the fourth quadrant is the idea of ensuring that we're successful now, but we're also building structures that help us be successful in the future, i.e. The last bond measure that we passed in November, $171 million to our facilities to ensure that we have environments that support learning, our parcel tax before to ensure that we have the funds to provide all the stuff that doesn't normally happen in public schools, quite frankly, is really key there. I'll get into some of the bond stuff here in a little bit. Really exciting there. I also want to actually back up. When we talk about community, I also want to recognize School Force. School Force is our education foundation, which contributes approximately $3 million to our school community each and every year. With that, we would not have academic social emotional counselors at each one of our schools. We wouldn't have science specialists. We wouldn't have reading teachers. All of those pieces really come together because our community supports us. We are working really, sometimes it's the arrows, sometimes it's the click. There we go. We are working as part of our strategic plan around the idea of what is it that we want our students to leave BRSSD. Yes, academically strong, all those pieces, but we are contextualizing it. It's the idea of think, innovate, and advocate. We want our students to deepen their understanding, to actively seek mastery of content. We want them to explore new ideas. We want them to be brave in their approach to tackling problems and embracing challenges, right? That kind of growth mindset, that habits of mind that if I work hard, I can conquer this, I can master it, and I can move forward. And then again, when we think about our political environment, we do want our students to be advocates, and that comes in multiple forms. One is advocating for yourself. As a learner, we want our students to know where they're strong at, take advantage of those strengths. We want our students to know the areas that are hard for them, right? Acknowledge that and be able to grow in those areas. We also recognize that being an advocate is advocating for others. We are part of a community. We are part of a global society, and part of that is advocacy for others. Super exciting news. Literally last week, we were officially notified that Nesbitt Middle School, their 6, 7, and 8 program, received their authorization from the International Baccalaureate. International Baccalaureate, they are an International Baccalaureate World School, means IB has programs around the world that really focus on commitment to academic excellence, global mindedness, and really student-centered thinking. A lot of projects, a focus on foreign language. All of our students, 6, 7, and 8, will have comprehensive access to Spanish. The IB model is really based on kind of global competencies and thinking about how you connect with the larger world. So we're super excited. It was a very rigorous process. The middle school team at Nesbitt, typically, I want to say it's a 3 to 4 year journey towards authorization. They did it, I think, in 2.5. They were super involved, super committed, are super committed. And it's incredible, quite honestly, the work that they put into it and the opportunity it will be for students. Yes, that's the middle years program, 6, 7, and 8. I'll give props to our Nesbitt elementary teachers as well. They've been doing a lot of work around solutionary thinking, i.e. How they can do a project in a grade level that has a community impact that's scalable. So lots of good things happening at Nesbitt. You can learn more. I'd love to show you the video. It's like a 7-minute video. It's probably a little too long to show, but the QR code is there. Scan it on your phone. Look at it when you're taking a walk or on an elliptical. It's a really good video there. So great things happening at Nesbitt. Okay, good. Carrie has this deck, so you can share it. Yeah. And now Measure P. We have been working, our trustees have been doing a lot of work to prioritize which projects. I think our facilities master plan, which is completed last year, has $280-something million of projects. We have 171 to work with, so it's okay. It's meant to be a long-term thing, but we've been working hard to identify the first set of projects, which we think is about 2 to 3 years worth of work. We will be replacing HVAC systems at each of our schools.
Was Measure P the one we just passed?
Correct.
In November?
Correct. We're already working on it. Yep. During COVID, our HVAC systems took a hit, right? We were putting in filters. We are putting in filters that the equipment on wasn't originally designed for, higher level. The new systems have CO2 monitoring. They have better airflow. Lots of good things happening there. That was a priority for us. We're looking at multi-use renovations across all of our schools. Playfield renovations, Ralston and Nesbitt. I'll just say the question that always comes, is it going to be artificial? Is it going to be natural? We haven't decided that yet. That's kind of a broader conversation for down the line. But nonetheless, it's going to be happening in the next couple of years here. We are looking at not Central's front office. I call this one out. It's an office upgrade because Central's office is actually in the middle of their school, which from a safety perspective isn't optimal. So we'll be doing some reconfiguration there. And then we'll be doing some district office ADA upgrades is the main focus. It's actually ending up being pretty much a complete renovation of the district office to get all those enhancements. But specifically at Nesbitt, I'll call out, we're doing a roof replacement, HVAC replacement, the play field, and there's also a multi-use renovation. So all of those pieces will be happening here at Nesbitt as well. Full tranche one list. There's a link on the deck. You can go in and see all that stuff on the right, just a little bit bigger. And now kind of the idea of what's happening to education kind of nationally. And so I put together this slide. It was last week that I put this together. I think it's still mostly accurate. I'm not 100% sure. Things change daily. But I won't read all this to you, but you can kind of go through it. The one thing that I think comes up is information about presidential orders. And I think it's important to realize that presidential orders don't create new laws. They don't change existing laws. They simply signal the administration's intent in moving forward. And we do have checks and balances, right? So those things go through Congress and Senate and all those pieces. And, you know, we just have to see where things go. You guys watch the news just like I do. Things are changing daily. It's up and down. And we'll continue to work and monitor and make sure that we're making adjustments to do the best we can. In terms of federal dollars, Belmont Redwood Shores School District receives about 1.5 million. That comes in the form of special education, Title I, national free and reduced lunch funding. That's primarily, it is not a significant portion of our budget. I think we did the calculation at the meeting, 2.5% or whatnot. It's a small piece, but still it is a part of the big picture. From my perspective, I feel like we live in California, very progressive, supportive. My gut is if funds were to go away, we would see the state hopefully step in to support. But locally, it doesn't have that big of an impact. I had to do my research too, right? Like U.S. Department of Education, like, okay, like I know they help us, but they're past the State Department of Education. They're one step further. So I actually found this resource that's, I think, really good. Because it kind of breaks down. So U.S. Department of Education provides substantial funding for schools, colleges, and universities, all serving students. They invest in high needs areas like mental health, after school programming, teacher preparation. That's a big one. That was a yo-yo. One day teacher preparation funding was gone. The next day it was suspended. So we'll see. Financial aid for our kiddos that are going off to college, right? They administer all that. Protect students from discrimination. I think that's probably the biggest one for me personally, that they maintain the Office of Civil Rights and ensure equal educational opportunities for students with disabilities, English learners, and other high-need student populations. That's a big one. They generate research, look at best practices in education, and compare us nationally or globally. How are we doing? What's happening in Sweden, I think, is or Finland is always one, right? That we might pull on. So this was on the table there. Feel free to grab it. It goes into much more detail. In California, so this packet existed, gave an overview, and then it broke down every single state. I only printed California for folks. But in California, for example, 1.6 billion annual funding for students with disabilities, 3.2 billion in annual funding for schools enrolling 4 million students from low-income backgrounds, 158 million in English learner funding, 154 million to support safe and healthy students and provide well-rounded education. It kind of goes on and on and on. So, you know, I think if we big picture, we're hearing most of those programs are being absorbed in other areas. If that's the case, you know, great. We'll shift and we'll absorb, but ensuring that our kids continue to get the level of support they need is really the biggest. So I think what I'm saying is kind of a wait and see. We're not overly concerned at this point in time. It is a wait and see kind of thing, but there are some concerning directions that we all need to stay aware of. All right, Jack.
I know you didn't talk about it tonight, but what happened with the K-1 funds? I know I was part of one of those meetings where we got funds to help, you know, for music and arts, and it seems like Nesbitt got the short end of the stick. They don't get the music. Central does, but Nesbitt doesn't. So my daughter, we live in this neighborhood, but she ended up going to Central because they were still busing kids from the shore. So she was lucky that she got music every day, and she ended up continuing that at Ralston and continuing that, and she got to go sing in choir at Carnegie Hall. It seems like it's sort of like they've decided that Nesbitt is a Spanish school and not a music school, and it seems like everybody should have equal opportunity to have Spanish and music, as opposed to this is the Spanish school. We've decided Nesbitt's the Spanish language school, and we've decided Central is the music school.
Yeah.
Are we divvying it up like that? Because to me, it should be equal opportunity in all the schools.
So yes and no. Kind of a middle of the line answer. We do have, Nesbitt is a small school that is specializing in international baccalaureate. It is a specialized program, and it's rigorous in the sense of how subject areas are combined. So is there an opportunity for a full day, every day music elective? No. Does Nesbitt offer music for its middle school students? Yes. It's not a lot of students that do participate in full disclosure, but they do offer it. With Prop 28 funds, I think that's what you're mentioning. Voters approved Prop 28 a year and a half ago, which is specific monies for arts and music. When we did our committee work, our community really values the music side. We did build out music twice a week for elementary grades. Not so much difference for Ralston and Sandpiper. Nesbitt and Sandpiper, they follow the elementary model just because they're a K-8 school. Nesbitt has, Ralston has the full band elective. So yes, I think if you're, there's an element of choosing. If you want that comprehensive music program, that is at Ralston. If you want that language intensive kind of project-based experience, that is at Nesbitt. So we do our best to make sure that we, let me hit
I'm
it
just
there.
admitting somebody.
Yeah, no worries. We do our best to make sure that we're doing parent nights for all of our fifth grade families moving to middle school, to make sure that they have all the information to make the best choice for them. Our mantra is we have 3 great options. Nesbitt, Sandpiper, and Ralston are all incredible schools. And there's one great or perfect choice for each child. So we do our best to work.
So they're not obligated if they live in Sterling Downs to go to Nesbitt.
They are not. That is correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Belmont, is it as crazy as before or just?
No, it is not. Actually, we throughout the state, we just introduced transitional kindergarten for it's essentially a new grade. We call it transitional kindergarten. So it's 4th grade, born September. I always get 1 or 2 backwards. Beginning of September when they turn 4. So instead of starting as 5, they're starting as 4. It's essentially, it's what we used to think was preschool.
Okay.
Right. And the whole idea is the more we offer in public education, we continue to shift educational opportunities lower for more access. So the idea, what is it? Cradle to college. Is that what it is? Cradle to what? Yeah, cradle to college. Cradle to career. Anyway, from when they're wee little to when they're big. Yeah, right. We give that opportunity. So we are hovering right around 4,000. We were a few hundred higher a couple of years ago. So we do see a declining enrollment even when we add a new grade. Right. Locally, you'll hear people concerned about declining enrollment. If you're funded by the state following the LCFF funding, so state guarantees you a minimum funding, right? If I had a cup and state says your cup is entitled to be all the way filled to the top. And if your property taxes only fill it halfway, the state's going to fill it up, right? Then you're fully funded. We call that the LCFF model. Okay, if your property taxes fill up your cup to the top and it overflows, you not only get to keep everything in your cup, you get to keep that extra, right? And this cup is determined by how many kids you have, the background of your kiddos, whether they're English learners, there's offset funding pieces. So we're getting more than the state funding, right? And when you have a declining enrollment and you're getting more already, that funding doesn't go anywhere, right? So you actually have more dollars to work with fewer kids, right? So when we look at countywide of community funded districts, we are honestly still towards the bottom, right? That's why our community support is important, but declining enrollment doesn't have a financial impact on us. Yeah.
Last question. How often do they need to do these renovations? Because it seems like every election cycle, we need more money to fix the schools. We need more money to fix the schools. When do they actually get it fixed? Because it seems like they get, millions of dollars on this funding, and then 2 years later or 4 years later, we need more millions of dollars. It's like, didn't they fix the roof last time? What happened? So I'm kind of every voting cycle, voting for more money for schools. Where is it all going?
Good question. I wish I would have included that slide. But if you familiar with Nesbitt, during the last renovation, the last bond measure, they got the new middle school building, right? So that was their new building went in at Cipriani, new building went in at Ralston, new building went in at Sandpiper. That's where those funds were.
Sorry to interject.
Yeah.
I think it's just because they keep the same wording every single time.
Yes.
Fix the roofs and the stuff, and it's like, it's really not the same roof that they're replacing every 4 years. But I mean, they should change the language a little bit so we don't go, haven't they already fixed that? The past 3 elections? What's going on? Because roofs usually last 25 years, so it's odd that every 4 years we need a new roof.
Yes. There is a whole science, behind language when it comes to that. For example, a great example, we would not have anticipated that we would have a sinkhole in the back of Ralston School 2 years ago. And it was a 20-foot deep sinkhole, right? And it cost, I think it was like $750,000 to fill, because we had to fill a drainage pipe that went into Water Dog Park. But because we had language in our bond, we were able to use bond dollars to fix that piece. So language is sometimes written broad to account for those unexpected. But there's no sinkhole, but there's, field maintenance and repair and those kind of things. And what that does is, when we're able to use bond dollars and things like that for our facilities, they don't come from our general fund, right? So our renovations and things that we have to do to keep our schools up, if we don't have a source of funding, that comes from the funding that we can use for teachers, that we can use to give resources for kids. Right, so that's the whole piece. Hopefully it goes a little bit further, because California passed Prop, was it two? Anyway, they passed a big state bond as well, that hopefully there will be matching funds that help our local bond dollars go even further. So
I will add, I didn't come here to speak. All my information is his. But also, he usually is inside of it so much that whatever, as the lay person, what I learned in the general, fixing the roof is actually true, and it's just a different one every time. So we're asking the whole district, we have to say, I need people up the hill to vote for it so that we can fix in Redwood Shores. So we say fixing the roofs.
Yeah.
And when I got to the district, we did a site tour, and I was at Fox.
Right.
And I was like, when was the last time you did this one? And so I felt the same way, and it was that it's, moving around to different sites,
If you drove up Ralston last summer, you saw big tarps, we redid that roof. Yeah.
Are we able to attract the teachers we need? I know that's a concern too, because cost of living is so high.
Yeah, it's definitely a concern. It is very expensive to live on the peninsula. We are competitive when we look at similar school districts. We do offer competitive wage and benefits. That is an important piece. It is still hard to attract math, science, special education teachers and paraeducators, right? So paraeducators may not have the credential.
I was a para teacher right now.
Perfect, right? So
It's a hard job.
it is a very hard job. So if you're I can put on my recruiting hat too. Yes, it is very hard.
God bless the people who do that.
For sure. So yeah, is it easy? No. Are we better off than most districts? Absolutely. We have a good, strong foundation to build from.
They just came out with a report today in the news about how they're releasing some funds to train people for well, you don't call it pre-K, but isn't there a 17,000 employee shortfall in California? I don't know if it's a Bay Area, but it just came out today that they're funding some program to help people get certified.
Probably, yeah.
The teachers in the preschool, because they're very short, thousands of.
It is interesting anecdotally, when big business is doing well, it's harder for us to recruit. When we see a downturn, it's a little bit easier. Yeah. So.
We have a good partnership with our union, and we've heard just today that they were doing well. Our people are happy.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I saw a couple of my students are working at Knob Hill now, bagging groceries, the guys that I worked with when I was at Ralston.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So I was like, hey, good for you. You guys staying out of trouble?
Yeah, right.
They were challenging, but they're working and contributing members to society. So it's nice to see.
Good.
Are the parents really been involved with school force? I mean, over the years, I'm just curious.
Could we use more volunteers on school force boards and school reps? Absolutely. We do have a very stable volunteer group. They have routinely met their fundraising goals. $3 million is not an easy ask, but our parents, our community step up. They see that value, and we have a lot more opportunity. Yeah, a lot of PTAs, very strong support at our PTA level. A lot of involved families.
No, thank you.
So
Yeah,
in
thank you.
terms of ways the community can support the district, then it does sound like school volunteers, school force support, and then recruiting
Uh-huh.
for those positions that
Yeah.
you said could be used some more.
Yeah.
We've also, as a community, helped with like cleanup days
Mhm.
at Nesbit, but are there other types of activities like that that you'd also want us to think about?
Most of those activities are going to be organized locally by the school principal. Nothing I'm trying to think comes to mind off the top.
I don't want to speak out of turn. I have.
No, please jump in. Anything comes to mind.
I would imagine, there we go, I'll say that so I can you have deniability. They accept volunteers for like reading groups and things like that.
Yeah.
So if someone who
Yeah.
has a skill set or desire to spend 30 minutes working with specifically literacy.
Yeah.
That's something where there's like openings and not a high bar of skill needed, but of course, some skills.
So is
Reading
this, sorry, what's
groups.
the?
Reading support? So
Like
working
reading
with students and
buddies.
helping with literacy,
Yeah.
just having, they can, I mean, they have specialists. Yeah, exactly. So they have specialists, but they can pull out small.
Carrie, probably the one thing I would like, if you're passing the word, if anybody has something that they really want to do or want to contribute in a certain way, I'll just, rather than finding the principal, if they don't know, you can just send them my way and I'll funnel it. Okay,
Well, I started an effort around AI literacy,
Mm.
and I'd love to kind of see if that's something that just to help parents. It's quite a journey,
uh-huh,
and that's something. I'm glad I'm here. You talk about reading literacy, but
Yep.
what's happening in the entire world
For
is
sure.
artificial intelligence.
uh-huh. I would love to connect with you on that.
All right.
Yeah, she just.
I'll take you up on that.
Okay.
I'm happy to rename Sam.
Okay.
Deal. Deal. And most-
How do I get connected? Will you connect us? Perfect.
I'll do the green X Cam, she can do the
Thank you.
zeros and ones over here.
Perfect. Perfect.
Receive volunteers.
And,
Great.
Anybody who speaks.
Say again?
Who speaks any language, just like for literacy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really happy to see that, school force is contributing $3 million right now. Right?
Yeah, we're integral members of school force.
Oh,
It was so difficult to get $1 million. I mean, it was like pulling teeth.
Yeah, it's better.
What-
I mean, the parents are.
Yeah.
Key, right? I
Yes,
mean,
so we actually, I'll just share, as past, we started a new partnership with our PTAs, last year. Was it last year? Because we were asking for families for donations here and support us here, and everybody felt like there was a pull. So we went towards, the single ask, donation method, whereby school force and PTAs work together. We've established a formula of that takes whatever we earn and part of that is parsed off directly to our PTAs. So our PTAs can start each spring with a full budget, and they can plan with that money for the following year. They don't have to worry about fundraising. All they have to do is say, support school force, and it comes to us, and you'll be a PTA member. And it's just that single messaging that really is working out well.
That was,
Yeah.
was 3 and 4 years ago.
3 and 4 years,
3 or 4 years ago.
yeah, we,
You said 1 or 2, it was,
but the single, yeah,
it was when I was PTA, right?
was it?
No, it's just.
Time
amazing.
flies,
That's what-
yeah,
I mean, when you mentioned that number, like, oh my God, that's great.
yeah,
Wonderful. You guys have done a great job.
thank you. So, I'll pass the,
Does Jackee want to say anything else?
oh, sorry, Jackee.
I actually don't have anything specific. I'm here to support, and again, most of my information already comes from him, and I'm here to ad lib.
Do you
As a
mind
community
sharing,
member.
Jackee, just with folks a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, sure.
Representing
Good call,
the
yeah.
district, and then like, and kind of in what ways people should know you and how
Sure.
to connect with you?
Yeah, hi. I'm Jackee Bruno. Currently am the president of the board, but that's, we rotate, so I didn't do anything special to be the president. But I did run to be on the board. I'm a father of 2 young girls, 6 and 9. They both go to Nesbitt. My house is like 800 feet that way. I'm on Chesterton. I spend a lot of time outside, so if you're just walking up or down Chesterton, you'd likely to have seen or heard me. I am, not all school board members need to have a background in education, but I have been in education for close to 20 years now. I'm currently a dean of students at Nueva in San Mateo. I've been a DEI director, activities director, athletic director, mostly in the private school world. I'm currently in grad school. Yeah, I coach lots of sports.
No,
Um,
I know seeing you walking, walk the dog.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, well, I didn't know you.
I'm
was-
around. I'm
yeah,
around. I'm
president.
quiet about it. Yeah. Let's see what I'm from Texas originally. I love to talk. So literally, whether it's questions about what we're doing with school board, or you want to talk about whether it's politics or the weather, or what kind of hawk just flew by, I'm around.
Or
Yeah.
where the butterflies are.
I just brought, it was a dad of the year moment, is my daughter was sick, and I was like, you know what, let's go look for caterpillars, and we found 6, and we like brought them, whatever, to life, I guess, and she got to release them with her class, and it was a beautiful moment, and it's, yeah.
I met you when I was running for city.
Yes, sir,
council.
yeah,
You were asking me whether you should run for school board.
that's right.
We had a long.
It was a helpful conversation, it absolutely was,
so
yeah.
glad to see you're doing really well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I also did PTA, site council, things like that. So I've been involved in the school early on. I think I actually started, I was the PTA president before my daughter had been on the campus. Because kind of it was at that time at least hard to find adult volunteers. We're doing a little better now. They've got a great president right now. Zoe Ellis Sutton is crushing it.
I will just give a little plug for our school board. All 5 of our school board members have children attending our schools. That is not something that's standard. That's not a prerequisite for running for school board. And it makes a huge difference because the work that they do, they're invested in it. That just translates to, honestly, as a superintendent, I'm blessed to have a high functioning board that works well together, that understands our goals and the direction we're headed, and is there for pure reason, right? To see kids grow. That's not the case. A lot of times school boards are used as stepping stones for other offices to really spur change and whatnot. And that's not here, right? It's a really genuine board. So very fortunate to have Jackee and the other board members as well. One of our board members has a TK student.
That's right.
Shelley's are, she has a couple elementary and middle school.
Mhm.
April has a middle schooler.
And the high school.
Transit and a high schooler. Who am I missing? And David has
2 elementary.
2 elementary, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And Jackee, is there anything else from like the Nesbitt perspective that would be good for folks to know in terms of how to support the school community at Nesbitt or anything like that? Because obviously we have people who've had kids. in
For sure.
schools, and want to keep supporting it.
that would see you.
I mean, some things are covered when you asked the question about it was kind of earlier what we can do. Part of why I was whispering about that is I do try to spend some time there, and I was just talking to the principal about like if I could, like I'm going to say it anyway. I'm not sure. I speak Spanish, and I wanted to help specifically there. So literacy is important anyway, and school's doing a good job with it, but I also know that that's an area where while Nesbitt is, it's a special school in our district, and I think specifically in those areas of serve, do they use some support, so I spent some time there working specifically with the younger kids, so my skill set doesn't need to be high, and they're just getting reps in kind of either language. So I think that would be helpful. Of course, like you asked about the cleanup days, joining things safely would be great. And then of course, actually, if any sort of kind of specific skill sets that you think would be good that maybe they haven't even thought of. I think they're always looking for kind of opportunities to use specifically local people who they can count on to be there, kind of with a little more freedoms on time too. So Nesbitt does a good job in getting support with what they've done kind of with IB or out in the community and connections with our high schools or with Notre Dame and things like that. But any individual I think would be awesome.
And I'll add to when I think about volunteers. Nesbitt, I mentioned their solutionary projects. So each grade level has a project. I'm trying to think of one, waste reduction, recycling. They'll think of a project and actually they have $3,000 to invest in their project at their grade level. Yeah. And sometimes they will want to interview people, professionals in the area, to empathize and gain an understanding. So if anybody has certain strengths or talents or interests in that, letting staff know, that's helpful, I think, as well.
I will say,
If they could broadcast something like that, to me,
To
it's
share
funny.
that.
I didn't even know these things,
Yeah.
we'd be glad to help, we're just right here.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm having the same thought because I'm even thinking we have a specific event called Discovery Day.
Yeah.
And they're always kind of specifically asking the parents. And there's somebody who like really loves making bubbles, who will come and run a station or things like that. And now that I'm thinking about it, like with this same network, will be good to know when that day exists. Yeah.
I mean, you could, Discovery, you can make it like a neighborhood.
Absolutely,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of talented people, this neighborhood.
And who know others.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
The ton of startups just got.
You're gonna be hired. You gotta be careful. What'd you say?
And I went to clown college, so.
Yeah,
Seriously,
oh, yeah.
that'll be helpful.
Graduated from Brothers Farm.
There we go.
College, so
Yeah.
you're not just knocking any bozo here.
That's awesome.
The one thing I do want to say, oftentimes I hear, things from the state. Will come down and it'll impact education.
Right.
In whatever way, right? We're serving breakfast, which fantastic. But there was an element of, it's another thing for schools to do, to squeeze in, to figure out. Very important that we squeeze it in and figure it out. But I come back to, like something else. Well, the reason it's something else is because schools are really the only vehicle to do good things for kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, sometimes we get put in awkward places and do things, but it's because we are that vehicle to do those good things. And I share that because that gives us resources. If there's anybody in the community that needs resources, whatever they are, we might not be able to provide them necessarily, but we can direct them. I know that there's members in our community that are fearful of immigration and ICE enforcement, right? We may not be able to directly help, but we can connect people in those ways. So don't ever feel shy about reaching out to us, whether it's on behalf of somebody or introducing them to us, whether they attend our schools or not. We are here as a community resource.
Thank you. So there was something in the chat. So the first point is about school force. Are they doing all they can on marketing? We had a student in Belmont Redwood Shore School District only 2 years ago. Since we left the district, I never get asked for school force donations. I see no yard signs. Where are they advertising, and how can we reach out to people without kids in the district? I don't do social media, maybe that's the only place they recruit for donors. Also, we never hear about Nesbit cleanup days anymore. So if you hear about
I hear you.
Need more signs for school for us. They used to be everywhere. I don't even
agree.
see them as much.
Yeah.
The yard signs, the little
Uh-huh.
small signs.
They're usually older,
I
yeah.
donate, you know.
For sure.
I don't see those.
We will pass on that feedback.
Yeah.
Keep it top of mind.
So a couple of things I might suggest, you're gonna ask me how, I'm gonna have to get back to you. You can subscribe to our district communications. Every time I send something out, I click other community, other subscribed and other community, and that goes out. So that's some of it. They'll definitely see School Force and making donations for those links. In terms of local connections, school websites for cleanup days and those kinds of things. And there's probably a way that they can sign up for individual school mailings. I can work with you on Carrie.
Probably an organizational one, yeah.
We have one for Sterling Downs has its own distribution, so
Yeah.
if we know of things, we can
Put that in the newsletter.
post
Yeah.
and send that out to you guys. And then every national night out, Dan always
Yeah.
contributes something for the newsletter that we distribute to the whole neighborhood. So that's the other way you guys can reach,
Yeah.
the rest of the neighborhood.
Great. I can see if I can get your your link on the mailing list as well.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you all. I appreciate your time tonight. All right, pass it over to Amy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Amy Koo, and I live in Redwood Shores, so not too far away. And I used to be on the Belmont Redwood Shores School Board for 9 years before I was elected to the high school board in 2022, representing Area A. And so, I know this area extremely well, and I still have kids in the schools as well, which is actually very rare at the high school level. But I do have one child who's a junior at Sequoia High School, and then a 7th grader at Sandpiper. And you may wonder, wait, why is your child at Sequoia? So you can actually choose, you have the option in freshman year for open enrollment, and you can choose whichever school in the high school district you want to attend. Now, we have the benefit of living in Carlmont's boundary, and therefore Carlmont is the most impacted school. So it's very hard for people outside of the zone for Carlmont to get into Carlmont. But we can pretty much get into any other high school we want to. We just, yeah. So they're actually quite happy if you leave Carlmont and go somewhere else, because it helps reduce their overcrowding. So if you want to know more about Sequoia, they have an IB program. And so that's the main difference. Most of the other high schools have AP honors, but Sequoia is an IB program. So that's one of the promising things is if Nesbit is an IB middle school, then potentially it would be a good match for Sequoia since they continue the IB program. But you don't actually need to be in an IB program to start IB in high school. So if your child is looking for something different, then the IB program at Sequoia is something to look into.
I never really understood what's the benefit of a middle school being IB?
Oh, that part I'm not sure. That would be an answer that Dan could get to, but maybe we'll do that at the end or something. Yeah.
So the question was
oh,
about, what's the benefit of a middle school IB program?
So let me start by saying there's zero downside of an IB program. I think the rigors that happen within the IB and the interconnected interdisciplinary planning that happens between subject areas and between teachers. That I'm on my side if I look back. They have a learner profile similar to ours, but a little bit even deeper. They focus on the global connections. There's 2 graphics that kind of talk about all those details. and it's a little bit more project-based.
Okay.
Right, so there's more emphasis on collaboration, more emphasis on critical thinking, and applying those skills to the broader world.
Yeah, our kids went to Ralston, but there was never any push or move towards IB, and I mean, I'm not against IB, I'm just wondering, but. And if Nesbitt went IB, does that mean all the others are as well?
No. No, we specifically looked at our small programs for that. There's a perception of, I'll just say, if you're not gonna go to Sequoia, if you're gonna go to Belmont, is that gonna prepare you in the same way? Absolutely, if not more so. Just because of the structure of the depth. Check-ins.
Well, I think I was gonna say that, and you kind of said it a little bit, but. Fair to say, but well, I perceive one of the actions just to like improve the profile like method was really what to make it something that would make you draw, which it wasn't doing before, and potential actually to put it.
Yeah, it's a great pipeline pathway towards Sequoia.
Yeah, yeah. And actually Sequoia is one of the, I don't know if it's one of the largest schools to have an IB program, because a lot of the high schools who have IB programs might be charter schools or really small high schools. So Sequoia is one of the largest high schools to fully implement IB, but they have a different approach. So it's a little bit more cutting edge because it's IB for all. So instead of, there's a very small subset of students that do the full IB diploma, but they're trying to target every single student taking at least one IB class. So you can imagine, every student has different interests. Well, pursue that interest really deep and take an IB path in that area of interest. And actually, even for other high schools, it should be the same way for honors and AP, because sometimes kids have specific interests. You don't have to take honors AP everything unless you want to, which can lead to some mental health issues sometimes because they're taking on too much. But every child has something that they're super passionate about. And so that's the area where we're encouraging children to study the passion and go deep in it and take your honors AP or IB in that area of interest. So something to keep in mind.
And I'll just add, if you go the full IB pathway in high school, you're actually eligible for an IB diploma, which is supplementary or secondary to your high school diploma as well.
Yeah, and it's accepted internationally. So yeah, then you could apply to colleges in Europe and Asia. So yeah.
It's something that many people know about.
No, and it's a pretty intense program. No, interbaccalaureate. Yeah, interbaccalaureate. Yeah.
No, I texted in my WhatsApp group of the neighbors, hey, IB, and they're like, what's IB?
I'll make sure that I am sharing
The video.
when I get you on the district mailing list, that way you'll see when our information night is and all that.
Okay. Yeah.
Awesome. So hopefully everyone got the 2 handouts, so I don't have any fancy slide deck. But some of the key initiatives that we're working on as a district is improving our communications. So one of them is an annual progress report. I actually don't know if any of you received it in the mail. Oh, interesting. I don't know if none of the above. Okay. I know I received it in the mail, but maybe that's because I'm a parent. So I'll check in to see if it's going to everybody in the community or just the parents, because that last year was the first time we did this. So it could have been that we started with the parents. But the idea is to have an annual progress report every year to help improve our, oh, you did get, oh, okay.
I think that's probably what it was.
Okay, start with the parents. Okay. So, and then the other one that was a handout was a strategic plan summary. So that actually, it was funny because before I left the BRSSD board, we started a strategic planning process. And then when I got to the high school board, hey, we're starting a strategic planning process. So we have that here. And then the other big activity is also a bond measure. And so that's what I'll talk about tonight. So first, in terms of the annual progress report, it does have a rollout of the strategic plan as well. And really, in 2023, we spent the whole year gathering input, stakeholder input, both community partner districts, so BRSSD participated as well, students, staff, so everyone chipped in together to come up with the final strategic plan that was approved late last year. And so it's a 3-year strategic plan. So we start with a portrait of an SUHSD graduate. And I really love this promise statement on the front, and it's also on the back of the annual report. So the promise statement is that all Sequoia Union High School students will belong, expand their worldview through diverse connections, and graduate ready to pursue their dreams. Now, that's a very lofty goal, but the idea that promise captures a lot of different things in a really quick fashion, because students really will not be successful if they don't feel like they're part of a community, that they have someone that trusts in them, that they find their tribe, especially in really large schools. It's easy to feel kind of isolated, or maybe you feel a little lost. So the key thing is every student should find their community, feel included, and be connected to the school in some way. And then expand their worldview through diverse connections. That can happen in different ways, right? It could be in the classroom, it could be interactions with the community, with volunteers, mentors, interactions with each other. But we're trying to really focus on exposing students to many different viewpoints and different experiences. And then finally, graduate ready to pursue their dreams. I mean, it's not just about which college to attend, but it's finding your own passion. So we're trying to help students identify what they're actually interested in so that they can learn how to self-reflect all the time, right? Are they happy? Are they sad? Recognize their emotions, figure out how to set goals, right? Create that sense of agency. And then really, if they're able to learn how to learn and always be looking forward to the future and understanding themselves, they should be able to pursue their dreams, right? Nothing should stop them. So it's a very lofty promise, but I think it's really captures what we want to do in a nutshell. And you can see the rest of the portrait of a SUHSD graduate. We want them to be effective at communicating and collaborating. We want them to be a responsible and resilient learner. And responsible is definitely very key too, because now there's all this information out there, and they need to be able to sift through all of that and make sure that they're using reliable sources, be civic-minded and community-centered, and then a focus on personal wellness, right? Always making sure that they have healthy behaviors and relationships, and then be a creative and adaptive critical thinker, and be post-secondary ready, whatever that path may be, okay? And then our goals, well, our values are summarized here because there's a lot of detail in here. So we really want to focus on the whole student, and safety, belonging, and inclusion. We do also want to make sure that our staff are thriving. So it's not just the students that are having mental health issues. Actually, oftentimes our staff are as well. So the staff well-being is very important because it's kind of like when you're on an airplane, you have to put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put the oxygen mask on the children. And it's the same way, like if the teachers are not doing well, the staff is not doing well, it kind of transcends to the students in the room. So we want to make sure staff are doing well. And there's a focus on continuous improvement and innovation. And the continuous improvement, that's kind of my background. I didn't talk about what I did before, but I'm more supply chain operations, trained as an engineer, and I'm always like, continuous improvement. And innovation, obviously, right? And also high expectations with individualized support. So there's been a lot of controversy sometimes about honors and AP classes, and are we challenging all of our students? But we want to make sure that regardless of the student's background, that we have high expectations for them. And sometimes that's hard, right? People have different biases, and we're trying to make sure that, you know, people are learning about biases and blind spots, right? And really making sure that we expect the highest from excellence from every student, and we just need to figure out how to support them. And then also responsibility and accountability. So we're really trying to define what the goals and objectives are and be more data-driven to see if the things that we're doing are working. And then our goals, we have 3 goals, and all of our metrics kind of roll into those goals. There's safety, well-being, and connection is one of them. And then academic growth and mastery for all. And then the last piece of it is readiness for career, college, and life. And then actually, I'll highlight certain things from the annual report where it says 2023 to 24 by the numbers. So in case people are looking on Zoom. I wanted to highlight the support and recognition piece. So there's different award programs. So one is from the county. And so there's a San Mateo County School Boards Association. And last year we were recognized for the Newcomer Welcome Center, which actually is playing a very important role right now because a lot of the newcomers are very fearful of what's happening with ICE and things like that. So that center was recognized for its ability to support newcomers in their transition to a new country, because oftentimes language is the only barrier. It's not that they don't know the content. So how can they still be successful in the areas of their passion while supporting them with language learning, right? But now it's doubling as extra supports, putting them in touch with community services, and really, you know, any help that they need, they're trying to work through those issues.
Is it based at a certain school, Amy, or is it like?
No, it's a
district-wide
district-wide
initiative?
function. Yeah, it's a district-wide initiative. And so usually if there's a new family, they meet with that district office person first.
Mhm.
And there's like a really close relationship before they go to the high school. Yeah. And then we also were recognized for the School Attendance Review Board. And we were one of 23 model SAR programs recognized by the California Department of Education. So that was a really big thing. So that's really focused on improving attendance and processes and procedures to help students attend school, because the ones who are struggling the most in school are the ones that are not showing up, right? And so, and it's hard, right? And now with all the craziness out there, a lot of the gains that we had in getting students to school, it's starting to decline. So we're seeing attendance numbers drop. So this is very concerning because people are fearful about going to school. So this is something that we're going to have to focus on in the coming year. And then also, we were recently recognized by Stanford for our research collaboration with them. And a few years ago, we were recognized with the collaboration for English language learners. And this time around, it's for the math program was recognized. And actually everyone, all the feeder districts, as well as the high school district, were invited to attend that recognition ceremony, because it's all data that cuts across elementary all the way to high school. And I think that they're even looking a little bit beyond high school at college outcomes. But one thing I thought that was really great was Professor D is a professor of education at Stanford. And when I talked to him after the lunch, he was saying, you know, Sequoia Union High School District is very research driven and data driven, even on its own, because he works with a lot of school districts across the country. And when a lot of times in research, you want A/B testing and like, how does this small group compare to the larger group? And a lot of schools are very jittery about that. But apparently our high school district proactively had already done that when they were testing out a change to the math sequence and removing remedial math. And he said, that was amazing. Like, I didn't even have to suggest, you know, having a control group and a non-control group, and they already did it. So I really felt great about that recognition. Is there someone trying to get in? Oh, what's going on there? Safari quit.
That's okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay. And then
Thank
I'll
you.
wrap up with Measure W. So I really appreciate all the support. Back in November 2022, voters approved Measure W. And it's interesting, you're probably wondering, how come we haven't heard anything since 2022? Well, things kind of take a long time, as you imagine, even if you're renovating your own house, it's a long drawn out process. It's even. Well, there was a lot of work even before the bond measure was put out there, but then, you know, we're getting final input from all the schools, and then the board has to approve the master plan. So it's actually broken down across 7 years of work. So it started this year, 2024, and it doesn't finish until 2031. And it's 4 different phases. So it's broken down between critical projects. We do those first, and then phase 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. So the earliest construction is actually roofing. Naturally, because that was in the ballot, right? Ballot language. That's actually starting in 2025. So they're going through. Yeah, so roofing comes first. And then a lot of the other projects that that'll be more significant, like new buildings. Sequoia is actually a big one because Sequoia is actually the oldest high school between San Francisco and San Jose. So it's a historic building. And so as such, it has to go through a lot of approvals, but also because it's historic, there's a lot of HVAC stuff that needs to happen there. It was actually pretty bad during the pandemic, but there's a lot of improvements and upgrades that need to be made to bring it up to code and current standards for HVAC. So, but most of the construction doesn't even start until 2027. So it'll be a while yet before you see all the big projects kickstart. So just in case you're wondering, why is it so quiet after we approved Measure W? That's because we're doing the easy stuff first, like roofing. And then those significant projects will take a longer lead time to be approved, because it's not just being approved by the local district, it's approved by the state. So we got to wind through all of the state. Well, yeah, that one's even more complicated. Yeah. But if you're interested in Claremont specifically, we do have a breakdown by site. So besides the roofing project, the other thing is they're adding a new building. So there's going to be a new T-wing. And so design is happening later this year, starting in November. And then there's going to be bidding in 2026 fall. Construction is anticipated to start in June 2027 because they really want to try and leverage summertime. And then the final closeout of construction would be May 2029 for that new building. And then they're also doing a new baseball field. And the construction will be June 2026 for that one. And then they're doing something called a terrace building. I think that's actually close to where the performing arts area is. But construction is anticipated for June 2029, because that was not phase 1 or phase 2. It's like one of the lower priority projects. So that's coming later. And then, yeah, roofing replacement is going to be summer 2025.
Is that to accommodate expansion
At Carmel? Yeah, the building, the new building helps to accommodate some more space. I think the terrace building is more of a renovation kind of thing. Yeah.
Any upgrades at Belmont?
I think that is also included in here. Let me see if I see some of the summary projects.
Some of the students that come on with ADA, sports really rough because it's so I was just curious.
That's gonna be.
So
Mhm.
email, I'll add to it.
Okay.
Anytime you build new stuff, it opens
have
you up
elevators,
to
has-
upgrade
Mhm.
certain areas. For example, at Fox, because we're expanding TK, we did some renovations in a restroom. They said, great, we'll approve your restroom, but you need to upgrade all of the access ramp all the way up to the school. So something not even part of
Yeah,
the classroom was flagged for an upgrade. We had to redo that. So
yeah. So does that get factored in when they're planning it all? Because I mean, that's standard for any building, but like it can be really significant depending on.
I would imagine it can be, and it is, our contingencies built in. I think when we start planning these projects, we have that idea in mind.
Okay.
Like our district office, the ADA upgrade our driveway, like we have to redo our parking lot, we have to install an elevator, we have to make accessible staircase, right? Like all those things do factor into it. But yes, I would assume those. Maybe not everything,
Yeah,
but definitely in the areas that.
there's a minimum.
Yep. And then besides those 3 areas, just thinking through there's some big topics out there such as ethnic studies, and we're getting feedback from that and actually trying to incorporate some changes. So it's actually on the next board meeting agenda. If anyone wants to tune in, maybe I shouldn't say it so loudly, but hey, because it's been very controversial. But it is on April 23rd. We're expecting to have ethnic studies on the agenda. And then there's also been a lot of discussion about honors and AP classes, and that's also on the same agenda. So it's going to be a long meeting, I think, but we'll see. And then the last thing is there is a financial literacy requirement coming down the pike in California. So we're also looking at that. Because there's already a lot of requirements in high school. So some of the work that we're looking at is just looking at all the requirements. Where are we above the requirements by the state versus, is there any flexibility there? And then personally, I left the corporate world and went into financial education and planning. So it's like, oh, this is going to be interesting, So I'm following it very closely, but it is a very important skill. And actually, when you talk to students and actually talk to adults, they really wish that they had more financial literacy in school. Yeah, because if you think about it, that's actually some of the education that makes school more real, because it's something useful as soon as you leave high school. Yeah, it's very applied, and then you could use a lot of what you're learning in school. So we're taking a look at that and figuring out, how are we going to prep for this financial literacy requirement? And the kids are already so stressed out about colleges, and when we talk about the Department of Education, that's one of the big fears is all the financial aid programs and making sure that those move forward without a hitch. Because last year they already had a bit of a disaster with the financial aid process because they were upgrading the FAFSA form, which is the government form that all students need to complete to qualify for financial aid. And their upgrade took a turn to the worse and things got really delayed and college acceptances were coming out, but then students didn't know what kind of aid they were getting and it was a mess. So this year it's already been delayed. And then if you start messing around with the people processing all this stuff, so that's one of the fears that families are going to be really struggling during the college application process. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had a question.
Uh-huh.
Because of COVID, it has affected students greatly, mostly in the mental health area. A lot of kids are, they're delayed, but not just, academically, but mentally too. And I wonder, with all these pressures and AP classes and whatnot, how are there funds available to sort of create a new place, not just guidance counselors, but mental health care people on the schools to kind of help these people, especially now with all the other things that are going on. We alluded to earlier, ICE and all this other stuff. These kids are, obviously there's so much going on with COVID. My daughter graduated at Belmont and did a drive-by. Didn't even have a graduation, and that was a really stressful time. We didn't have a high school. She just graduated college last year. We finally got to have a graduation for the first time. But I mean, she took a couple of AP classes. There was that pressure to take all of them. And I wonder, we want to have whole kids and balanced kids, but if we're pushing them to take all AP classes, because my daughter had almost a 4.0, it was like 3.998. And didn't get into any UC schools, not a one. And the average score now is 4.25 on the low side, but they're looking at 4.5. That means you have no life as a kid. So that's got to put mental health care pressures on these kids when they're taking all AP classes and they're doing sports and they're doing this and they're doing that. It's like, I'm thinking these kids are going to explode.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing is, when I was a para teacher, I was working with special needs kids, so I couldn't do anything. But in between classes, I saw kids vaping at Ralston, walking through. These are 13-year-old kids. Are we doing anything to be addressing some of these issues? Because now we're going to be bringing cannabis into our community, because that's another thing that's coming up. You already get kids vaping in schools. Not that they're going to go to cannabis, but how do we sort of nip that in the bud right now, because they're already vaping and they're 13 years old. Those are a couple of my concerns.
Yeah, and that kind of goes from middle school, it goes into the high school. So we've had, we have student trustees in the high school district, and when they give a report to the board, the top 3 things are the quality of the food, which actually is no different than the elementary district, because I'm getting it from my 7th grader every day. And then the other thing was restrooms. And actually some of the feedback was sometimes groups of kids will gather in the restroom and do weird stuff in there, including vaping. So there's stuff that people are monitoring the restrooms, but also the quality of the restrooms. And then the last part really is people are very concerned about mental health. So each of our high schools does have a wellness center, and some of the bond money is actually going to help expand some of that. But it's really a safe space for students to go into and get help. So that's going around. And then there's also partnerships with Stanford. So they have the medical school sends a health clinic or a mobile health van to each of our high schools, and just provides free access to healthcare for the students. So that's been very helpful. So they can get eye exams, dental exams, just annual exams, all sorts of stuff. So really trying to support the whole student.
Any other
Yeah.
questions?
Well, and I think there was interest in finding out how parents or community members can be involved. We are trying to improve our communications. I don't know that we do a whole lot outside of parents and staff right now. And we're even trying to improve the parent and staff communication. So we are starting to implement Parent Square, which is what a lot of our feeder districts use. So that's more of a unified platform for communication, because before, like, email was not synchronized across the different schools, and then the text message and social media, everything's separated. So we're trying to holistically look at, because we did a communications audit earlier this year. I don't know who here filled out the survey.
He's only a few of us.
I mean, it was open to community members too, but I guess we weren't really like pushing hard on the community. But the idea is to understand like the types of communication that different groups of people are looking for. But one of it is, you know, obviously substitutes are always a problem, and then teaching staff. And then also the career technology or CTE programs, the career tech education programs, are always looking for mentors. So for example, at Carlmont, the big one there is the Biotechnology Institute, for example. And when I used to work at Gilead, I volunteered there before, because they would have mentors, or they would have like a career day. So there's a lot of opportunities in terms of CTE to be involved as part of the community. So like Sequoia has like a culinary program. So sometimes they get local chefs involved. So each high school has different CTE programs. So those are great opportunities for the community to be involved. And then the funding in the high school district is different, because we are community funded, but then also all the fundraising is site specific. So unlike the Belmont Redwood Shore School District, which has a single ed foundation for the entire district, each high school has their own ed foundation. Each high school has their own parent teacher student association. So you add the S when you're in high school. And then each school also has a boosters association, which is specifically for the sports. Yeah, so it's very different from the elementary model of a district-wide ed foundation. But sometimes people donate directly to the district as well. So there's a lot of different ways to get involved. I know one of our former trustees used to be the team doctor. I think he still is the team doctor at Carlmont for the football team. But a lot of the coaches might be community members as well for different high school sports.
So when you look at when you publish the annual report, does this include any of the charter schools? There's some.
Yeah, so charters are not included in that, except for EPAA, the East Palo Alto Academy is a dependent charter. So it means that even though they're a charter school, it's actually funded and operated by the high school district. And so all of those teachers are also part of the union, or they get the same salaries as a teacher at SUHSD. And then the independent charters are operating completely separately. Although we have oversight, so we have financial oversight over what they're doing, but not programming oversight. Yeah.
So these numbers would not include them. Got it. Okay.
One last thought, I'm just thinking that, you know, when I grew up, there was a trade school as part of school. So if you wanted to take automotive, culinary, cooking, plumbing, my friend learned computers back in 1979, went to a regular school half the day, and the other half the day went to trade school. And I don't know what happened with the Department of Education, but in their infinite wisdom, they decided everybody needs to go to college. Well, the reality is not every kid is cut out for that. We need people who can frame buildings. We need plumbers. We need electricians. We need these people who are in the trades. We can't bring everybody from outside. Why? Is that something that California maybe is looking at, that maybe to start bringing some of that back? Because we used to have that years ago. I don't know, I'm assuming California, I'm from Massachusetts, but that was something you could choose as an option. And these people make very good livings.
We have.
Yeah, we
That's
have
the
that.
CTE.
Yeah, that's part of the
That's the
impetus
career
behind the
guidance.
CTE. Yeah, and at the state level, they have a lot of focus on that too. So,
I mean, it'd be great if every kid was, cut out to go to college, but not everybody is, and, we do need somebody to come fix our, our toilet sometimes.
yeah, and usually when we have like career days at the different schools, it's not just colleges, but also careers, right? And then we have local unions that will come and bring representatives. We have folks from the armed forces coming and representing. So trying to really broaden everyone's horizons about options post high school.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
that's career day. I'm talking more about like training.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but that is a whole commitment by the school districts, but the workforce development boards,
Right.
I mean, because that is, I mean, I'm working and trying to get more people into forestry and fire careers, right? And so so
It needs
there's
funding,
a whole
obviously, to do this.
investment
Yeah, of
of
course.
people
Yeah.
who are doing this throughout the state. So it's not gone. It's just, it may not be as present and as seen,
Yeah.
but that thread is there and there is an investment of public funds to make all that happen.
I mean,
Workforce
going back to what she said, we might have somebody teaching AI in high schools now.
Well, yeah, and I was kind of curious about that one too, because a lot of school districts are trying to come up with an AI task force and come up with policies. And our district initially just said, absolutely no AI use, and then boom, just ban it all. And then now we're backing off saying, okay, there's a time and a place. But the initial reaction was just ban it all. So,
We'll say,
Yeah.
Some of the constraints, and maybe not so much high school, I'm not as familiar with the high school side. There are definitely CTE pathways that are geared for different professional tracks.
Is that like D-Tech? Is that what you're talking about? Or?
That's a charter school, yeah.
Two, like more design thinking, project-based. But like, I can speak from an elementary, everybody's like, well, we're the cooking class, and we actually do have cooking, culinary arts, but where did wood shop go? Where did metal shop go?
Okay, yeah.
And yeah, there is the thought that those disappeared when we kind of were thinking more college track. The reality is you have to have a specialized credential to teach cooking, metal shop, wood shop. You have to have an industrial arts credential, I think it is.
Yeah.
And you just
We don't
can't
have anybody
find
have that.
people there to teach it. Right, so, you know, that is a part of it.
Interesting.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
awesome.
I know we ran, thank you. And just want to thank everyone, please head on out. I'm just gonna do some final announcements. So a few things from Public Works that I was asked to pass along to folks. There have been a lot of concerns about that pump on Hiller Street. This is the sewer pump that has been quite loud and a long ongoing project. So due to the long wait time, they're waiting for a new permanent pump for the pump station. So they're trying to finish all other construction related to the project before it arrives. Their contractor is searching for a new vendor who can provide a quieter electric bypass pump sooner. In the meantime, the contractor will install sound absorbing blankets and screens. So they'll take care of that. And I'll send some information out about this. And then the other update is that there is still a plan to replace the Wessex Street light. And they're just working on resolving the contract there. So I'll send these updates out. And then the final thing is to let people know that there's a 2025 pavement rehabilitation project that's moving forward that will involve repaving Ralston frontage road from Hiller Street to Keedith Street and construct ADA accessible curb ramps along the segment. So I'll be sharing some more information about that. But anyway, that's the Public Works updates. Just wanted to share that with you guys. Thanks for being here. All right. Good night.